Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Southern Shores regular Town Council meeting for Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. If you could all please join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Council, we have an agenda before us. Are there any amendments, or may I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Council, we have a consent agenda of 2 items. The first is the renewal disaster-related debris removal agreement with NCDOT. And essentially what this does is allow the town to get reimbursed for debris removal from NCDOT right-of-ways after a storm for the next 5 years. And the second consent agenda item is the town manager contract renewal, which is for 3 years. So that's renewing our contract with Mr. Cliff Ogburn, our current town manager. Can I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda, Council?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
And a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we get to the fun part of the agenda. Well, one of the fun parts of the agenda tonight, employee recognition. We have 2 of our wonderful town staff who have been with us for 15 years, which is very exciting. One is our lovely and extremely capable town clerk, Sheila Kane. And the other is Matt Cook, who's from our police department. And if Matt and Sheila would meet me at the front for a little recognition. And our third employee with 5 years of service is our very own Frankie Powers Jr. from our Public Works Department. Frankie has gone home for the evening, so he's not with us tonight. So if Matt and Sheila will meet me. It only took 15 years. Very well. All right. We're going to take your pictures. That's great. And around the clock. Again, we have, even though someone here in the audience who is going to speak to us very soon may disagree, we have the best staff of a town in the county of Dare. And those are 2 of our wonderful staff members. So thank you so much for your service to our town. Next on the agenda is Mr. Jim Gould, our very own Southern Shores resident. And he is going to talk to us about the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Coalition. Good evening, Jim.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council and the public and staff. Thank you all for allowing the Outer Banks Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Coalition to come before you this evening. So I can click this to advance. All right, that'll be easy. So famous last words, right? That'll be easy. So I am a resident here in Southern Shores. I live at 213 Woodland Drive and have had traffic on my mind since I moved to the Outer Banks, and have always enjoyed being a pedestrian in many forms, whether it's an e-bike or a skateboard or I don't rollerblade, but that's an option, I guess. But here I am this evening, so thank you very much. So the Outer Banks Bicycle and Pedestrian Coalition is revamping at this moment in time. After their creation in 2013, after several collisions throughout the Outer Banks, we kind of lost steam during COVID, and we are now back in full force trying to establish committees and get the ball rolling once again, or get maybe the wheels rolling once again, and the people crossing and the drivers paying attention once again. So about us, like I said, we founded in 2013, and we are basically a mixed group that incorporates, the school system, our local businesses, citizens, law enforcement agencies, all the way from Hatteras Island to the very tip of that, all the way into Corolla. So we incorporate Currituck County too into our plans and decision making as we advance forward. So we are a 501c3 organization. That's important to note. And we have great relationships with NCDOT and have taken advantage of their funding through the Watch for Me and See campaign, Let's Go and See, and our Safe Routes for School campaign. Our mission is, I guess, pretty basic overall, but it's basically to facilitate education and awareness of practical bicycle and pedestrian safety to drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists. So we really try to do this in a positive, proactive manner wherever we are. We're not saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. We offer up more positive messaging, I guess, throughout. So why we exist, basically? Well, some of the facts can speak for themselves. This little data sheet here shows the number of collisions between 2018 and 2022. And this information was compiled by the police departments of Nags Head and Kill Devil Hills. And you see there that, those are the numbers, but basically any collision, any accident is unacceptable. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We don't want these interactions between humans and bicyclists, pedestrians, and vehicles out there. We don't want interactions between vehicle and vehicle either. So we're definitely trying to avoid fatalities at all costs. And that's sort of the message that we want to get out, is just to avoid those collisions as best as possible. Now, although that's a number, there are, of course, plenty of news articles that get published about incidents on the Outer Banks. And, they're not just known here in our local community, they're published and distributed across the country. So, whenever we have a horrible accident here, people know about it far and wide. And we'd like to eliminate that bad press as much as possible. So that's sort of our goal. Main things that we do are provide bicycle lights to students, our seasonal workers, J1s. We provide safety education and public service announcements on local media. We also support local events surrounding bicycle safety. But we believe that we could do all of this better. So we could have better outreach and partnerships with local organizations. We could have more advocacy for safe routes, new paths, and even a wider distribution for all of our efforts throughout the Outer Banks. So why I'm here this evening is to basically solicit more help. So ask for more volunteers. So if you hear this through any social media platform, or you're here this evening, please spread the word and reach out to us. If you have the ability to scan that QR code, that'll connect you with our vice chair, which is myself, or our chair. And I can also be reached at vicechair@obxbikeped.org. And our website is obxbikeped.org. And specifically, we have some excellent activities coming up. Our main annual fundraiser is going to be August 3rd at the Kitty Hawk Heights location across from Jockey's Ridge. And that is the Watermelon Festival. So if you haven't attended the Watermelon Festival, it's a wonderful thing to attend, and you can't get any better satisfaction out of it than being a volunteer with the Outer Banks Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Coalition. And then, but even before that, we are having a public meeting up in the town of Duck at 5:30 on Tuesday, July 25th. So we invite all those that can make it in person to that meeting, and we'll also have a Google Meet option available. And this information can be found on the obxbikeped.org website also. So that sort of sums up my brief presentation, and we hope that those of you that can will join us in our efforts. So thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Council members, any questions for Jim?
Back on the chart you had where the number of fatalities were on pedestrians.
Yes,
that-
sir.
Were they walking, bicyclists, or what made it that?
So the pedestrian would indicate walking. The bicycle interaction would be the actual ones that involve bicyclists. Yes. And what's not shown here is exactly how many collisions were at crosswalks. A lot of the data that we get about car collisions, fender benders, minor accidents, sometimes are at a crosswalk where, there was a pedestrian involved, but maybe they weren't actually struck by the vehicle.
It's a challenge, I note, and specifically during the summer months, when they come off the dunes or wherever for a crosswalk, no, they just don't stop to adhere
Sure.
that a car is coming. Sometimes the car will stop, sometimes it doesn't. But as I understand it, maybe is that here in North Carolina, the car, other than at a crosswalk, is got the right of way.
Yes. And actually, just today, we put up a sign at 60 Ocean Boulevard in the
Is that
right of
the one I
way
saw there coming in?
to make
I
people
saw
more
that.
aware of the fact that there are crosswalks ahead. And it should say crosswalks. I think it says crosswalk,
Yeah.
but we know that we have multiple ahead of you on that route. And part of this goes to speak to, is it the responsibility of the pedestrian? Is it the responsibility of the driver? Is it responsibility of the bicyclist? It's a shared responsibility.
It's everybody.
Where the pedestrian needs to be just as aware of their surroundings as the driver, and maybe not always expect that they can just simply walk out into a crosswalk safely.
Well, I'm a walker, and I want to know where that car is, so I let them go. I'll motion them on.
Jim, how do you reach out to the J1 students? Because it seems like they're really very vulnerable on our roads.
So we have, and I don't know them to be able to provide specifics, but we have reached out to them as soon as they arrive through the organization that ISOP organization, I believe is what it is that organizes them, to provide information to them in their arrival packages.
Oh, nice.
Quite literally, in a bundle of other goods that they receive upon arrival.
Nice.
You bike to work every day, don't you?
I do bike to work often.
Yeah.
Yes, and I ride my e-bike. Yeah. And the electric bicycle is actually one of the things that a lot of townships and counties are trying to address at this moment in time, because they're a little tricky in terms of the general statutes that are associated with them in the state, and just the sheer fact that they can go at speeds that motorists and pedestrians aren't expecting. When you have a bicycle going 25 miles an hour, it may come up on you a little bit sooner than you realize. And then, some townships allow them on their sidewalks, other townships don't allow them on their sidewalks or multi-use paths. So trying to get the word out about e-bike safety is one of the priorities of the Outer Banks Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Coalition.
Good,
So,
because
absolutely.
as a walker, you don't hear them coming.
What's that, a walker?
As a walker, you don't
Oh.
hear them
Sometimes you don't hear them coming.
buzzing by you.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So be seen, I think, is the message here. And what better way to be seen than with the Outer Banks Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Coalition? So come and be seen with us. So,
Thank you, Jim.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your
Thank you.
time
Thank you.
and appreciate all the work that you're doing to make our community safer for everyone. Very
Thank
much
you.
appreciate it.
And likewise,
This is off, also say hello to Emily.
I will indeed. She was going to be here, but our 18-month-old had other plans.
So along, very quickly, along in this same area of pedestrian bicycle safety, I believe we are in the process of supporting an educational video as far as how do you safely get through a pedestrian crosswalk. Is that correct, Cliff?
Yes, ma'am.
And then one of the areas that we are going to pursue grant funding for is upgrading all of the pedestrian crosswalks on NC 12 in terms of their entire safety, everything from visibility. We had an email from a resident this past week who was coming back from Duck and heading to his home in Chickahawk. And he came up to a pedestrian crosswalk, as we understand it, and was blinded by the car that was stopped in the other direction because their headlights were on, and didn't actually see the people crossing in the crosswalk until like the very last instant. So he was just writing us to tell us of his concern about our crosswalks. And, you know, we can do more. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to make them as safe as we can. But as Jim pointed out, it's everybody's responsibility to walk
Yes.
with caution. So thank you again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I wear a reflective vest.
All right, moving right along, we'll go into our staff reports, and that would be, first up is our Deputy Town Manager and Planning Director, Mr. Wes Haskett. Good evening, Wes.
Good evening, everybody. I have a report for y'all tonight for the month of June. With respect to permits, there were a total of 55 permits issued. Those consisted of 9 zoning permits, 16 building permits. 2 of those were for new construction, 3 lot disturbance stormwater management permits, 1 lot disturbance demolition permit, and 26 trade permits. With respect to code enforcement in June, there were 13 warning citations mailed for solid waste ordinance violations. They continue to come in. And 1 warning citation was mailed for a right-of-way obstruction. With respect to the land use plan update, the consultant is still working on the final draft. If it's completed in time, we may schedule a special meeting for the planning board by the end of the month so that they can consider the final draft and possibly make a recommendation to you all. Once a recommendation has been made by the planning board, the plan will be sent to North Carolina Division of Coastal Management for its review, required review, which could take 75 days or longer. Once we've received comments from DCM, the consultant will revise the plan accordingly, and the planning board will consider it again if needed, and then council can hold a public hearing and consider it. With respect to the planning board, they will meet in here on July 17th at 5 o'clock. The board will be holding a public hearing for a variance application, VA-2301, submitted by Lindsay Lupino to seek relief from Town Code Section 36-165-8, Table C, which addresses permanent signage in the commercial district. And this is for the property located at 5500 North Croatan Highway. This is the Marketplace Shopping Center. Dollar Tree has vacated where they currently or previously were, and a Five Below has applied for permits to occupy that space. This variance application, they are requesting to allow for a wall sign that exceeds our current requirements. Also, the board will consider something we've been discussing for a while, Town Code Amendment 2302, and this is an amendment to relinquish ETJ over the Martins Point commercial area. That concludes my report. If y'all have any questions, I can try to answer.
What do you classify trade permits?
Mechanical, electrical, plumbing,
Oh, okay,
gas as well.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Wes?
It's good.
Thank you, Wes. Appreciate it very much. We have our Deputy Chief. No, we have Chief Limbacher. Come on up.
Don't demote him.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. So for the month of June, Fire Department responded to 75 calls. And it breaks down pretty simply. They had 8 patient assists, 32 EMS calls, which are just general EMS calls with the medics, 2 motor vehicle accidents with injury, 1 motor vehicle accident with no injury. The surf rescue was a person yelling for help that had made it to shore by the time surf rescue had got there. Combustible or flammable liquid is Joe Pond Trail. Slate odor was a tank, propane tank. Gas leaks, Ocean Boulevard at Ocean View Loop. We actually found that this weekend. We've been chasing that for a month. We've been getting calls on it. The last 2 months, we couldn't find it, just a light odor. The deputy chief thinks he found it with the police chief on Saturday, so hopefully was one of the houses on Ocean Boulevard. So hopefully we're in good shape there. But arcing or shorted wire was actually a call on duct. We were canceled en route. The service calls, as you know, are our wheelchair and our address assistance, any smoke detector, things like that we help people with. Assisted police or government agency was our chaplain into Duck for a bad EMS call. Public service, again, help with the smoke alarm system at the Rack Room Shoes and a tree down on 248 Woodland. Cover up or standby was a gathering in Martins Point where we do PR with the children. Canceled en route, 3 of those, smoke detector, CO detector, and detector activation with no fire unintentional were all basically batteries that needed cleaned. And that's pretty normal for this time of year. The last one was or alarm system activation, and that was the child at Goodwill that pulled the pull station. So again, we're still way behind. We're 27 calls this month. Behind last year, we had 102 calls in July or June. Again, I'm not upset about it. I'm glad people don't need us. We're prepared to help them. But I did finally ask a couple of my fellow chiefs, and everybody seems to be down a little bit. So I guess that's a good thing. But
Absolutely.
we're prepared for anything that comes along. So anybody have any questions?
Nope, I don't have any.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it
Thank
so
you
much. Okay. Next will be our town manager. Cliff, good evening.
What happened to our police report?
Well, the police chief will double up his report for next month.
Roger that.
He'd taken some time off and managed to get sick while he was doing so, and so that's why he's not here tonight. So I wanted to report first that we received from Fred Smith today a copy of the signed contract from their corporate office in Raleigh. So the street pavement project work can start. I think I told you last time it would be sometime in late July or August. The end date on that project is October 13th, and that's in the contract. So I expect within the next month they'll start working on the pavement project. Can you switch over? Yeah. So what I want to just spend a little time tonight talking about the kind of giving you a financial look back of into the last fiscal year. Obviously, we're only about 11 days into the current fiscal year, but I wanted to kind of lay this out as something that I'd like to start doing moving forward. So tonight, I'm going to go back and give you kind of how we've tracked through May 31st of last year, or I say last year, last fiscal year, this calendar year. And then in October, we'll have your audit presentation, which will capture the end of the fiscal year, capture June. And then in November, I'll give you a first quarter look, February, second quarter look, May, third quarter, and August, a fourth quarter. So I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of where I'm headed with these on some updates. And so this is kind of a work in progress. I wanted to lay this out and get any input or feedback, and so we can work to continue to improve this. And I don't like putting slides up here with this many numbers, but what this does is this is what, if we were to put the budget ordinance up here, it would look similar to this, except it would just have the adopted budget. What this shows is how the budget's been amended. So expenditures, we started out at a little under 9 million with transfers. The amended budget is up to about $10 million. As of May 31, we've spent just under 8 million of that, with just about $3 million remaining as we balance out the end of the year. But you'll see all of those, none were at 100%. So we'll once again be putting revenues over expenditures, and we'll be putting money back into the fund balance. And then the major revenues are captured here, and I'll go into those a little bit more. But what this does is it just gives you how we've tracked with the revenues and expenditures through May 31. This next one, this breaks it down a little bit more by month. one thing I'll point out here, obviously we have June of 22, of course, we don't have June of 23 reported yet, but our revenues are exceeding, are going to exceed what they were the prior year. You'll see September of this year is about $1 million more than it was in September of last year, and that's what it's little things can have big impacts, and when we receive funds can look like it throws things off. But we received a larger portion of our property taxes and our occupancy taxes that month for whatever reason. So it's $1 million, but that's why those came in. And then in April, we're about $500,000 above the April of the previous month. That's because that's when we recorded nearly or half of the ARP funds that we received were recorded that month. And this shows what I just showed you. It just kind of shows the oranges the year before, blue is this past year, and it just shows that pretty much everything tracks normally. The months are usually about the same, with the exception of April and September. And here's the difference. We've collected about $1.8 million more in revenue through May of 31. This is our cash. This is the cash deposits. It shows the PNC Bank, the operating account, the payroll account, and the money that we have invested with North Carolina Capital Management Trust. Those figures are up again for May of this year. Now this is a big part of the budget, almost half of the budget. And I think you'll see that we went back another year to show you occupancy tax, sales tax, and land transfer tax, because they are such a huge part of our budget. And that's a large reason, a primary reason why we're seeing increased revenues. You'll see what land transfer to the far right there, in May of 21, to that point, we had collected almost $395,000, increased it in 22, but we're going back down below the 21 number. So land transfer is the only one of the two right now, or up through May of 31, that are kind of going in the wrong direction. But occupancy and sales are still looking strong. This is the bars for exactly what I just showed you. Just kind of shows you how it's tracking along. And then here's expenses. It kind of reflects what the revenues were, the way it looks. The expenses, more revenue means more expenses sometimes. So this will show how that's tracked. Let me go back. The December, you'll see it's $1.8 million, that expense above December the year past. That's when we paid for the beach nourishment debt. So that one payment, that's the reason why this is so large. And then in March, the prior year, that's when we transferred from the Capital Reserve Fund $750,000. You remember from the fund balance, you transferred $1 million to offset the cost of the beach nourishment project. And so that's when those funds were transferred. So that shows that big hit. And again, with the exception of those 2 months, expenses are tracking almost identical year to year. And then same graph, it shows you the expenses through May of 23, with the difference being $789,000 more than the year before. And then expenditures by department. I think this is where I am. You'll see except for streets, and again, you are all very well aware of this. If we budgeted $1 million for street work in a prior year that doesn't get under contract in time, then it carries over to the next year. And you all have put a priority on street work, so that's why these numbers are so big. If we're doing $1 million a year, and we don't get it under contract one year, then it doubles up, and that's why you see that big number for that. So this is kind of, I'll get better with my graphs and my spreadsheets, but this is just kind of give you an idea of how we're going to be presenting this moving forward. Try to make it as much for the public as we do for the council. Any questions?
Very good. Thanks, Beth.
Very nice.
Thank you for the update.
Very helpful.
Yeah,
And there's more.
there's more.
I wanted to show you two things, to give you kind of an update, two things we're working on to present the budget as a whole. Why didn't that transfer over? Takes time.
Which one do you want?
It's still the laptop.
You want it online?
Hold on. Maybe I need. All right. Here we go. It's coming. Well. All right. Let's start here. Okay, so this is, we've been working with software with ClearGov. It's supposed to make reading the budget much more user-friendly. And what this does is it'll show, it'll give you information about the town of Southern Shores. It'll give us demographic snapshot. It shows what our population is, the median home value, household income. It'll show give a picture of the financial overview. 9.6. Now these numbers are all because of the capital reserve fund. There's $166,000 off on one and $50,000 off on another, but we get that right and these numbers will be the same. But what it does is it'll show you the per capita, what it's costing for the budget. It'll show you revenues versus expenditures going back to 2019. What the fund balance is, with less words, more kind of illustrations of the budget. Revenues, it'll show, the example I just gave with occupancy, sales, and land transfer tax. We get $3.8 million in budgeted revenue. That comes at a savings of $1,263 per capita. So it'll kind of give you the impact of what these revenues mean for a household. Same with the expenditures. It'll kind of show you where the money goes, breaks it down into, again, with large part of it, almost a third of it being committed to streets, bridges, beaches, and canals. And it'll show you for each department. Breaks it down into each department, police, admin, on down. And again, more information on the demographics and how they play into the budget. And then I wanted to show this. This is another feature of the budget. This is kind of the entirety of the budget. This isn't, I'm going to put the disclaimer out there. The budget's in the clerk's office. So if there's anything wrong here, it's right in the clerk's office. But what this does is it gives you somebody that's moving here. It gives them a history of the city, or excuse me, history of the town. There's more demographic information. It has our organizational chart, kind of give you an idea of how the departments are laid out. Town council, when you're, how you're elected, when the terms are up. It gives a little bit of review for the prior year, and then some basic explanation of what, for example, what's fund balance, what's a project ordinance, who's the budget officer, and it'll have manager's message. We go into the general fund, and again, it'll show some of what you saw on that other page, but it just breaks down where all the money is coming from and where it's all going. I wanted to show you how we're setting up. I'll pick on the Public Works Department. So this would have their mission, their vision, has their organizational chart. It lists out the expenditures versus, going back to 2019, how their budget's changed versus prior year. It'll show where the money goes. A large part of all of our department budgets are salaries. And the operating expenses are shown. And then it goes a little bit deeper. For example, under Public Works, we've got these responsibilities: street sanitation, the Lemon Branch program. But we can link in the streets, we can link to our payment and condition survey. So you can link, hit this link, and if it was working, but of course it's not. This is the payment and condition survey that we did. That if you live anywhere in town, you can click on your street and you can see when your street's getting work done, when what's being done to it. You were really going to be impressed by that, I promise. But it does have the. You can download the full report. Goes in the bridges. It'll have information there about the Trinity project, about the update there. It'll have the reports that were done about the. Here's that. You can think if you wanted to go that deep into this. So that's something we're going to put out to the public here, hopefully in the next week or so, and hopefully it gives them a little bit more detail and an easier way to approach looking at the budget.
So the website as for the town that exists now, is that going to also be still in play?
This
And
will be a link.
Lead
This will be
off of that main?
Yes, ma'am.
So they'll have like the main website plus this ClearGov. Okay.
Nice, very nice.
That's a lot of information to be able to be shared out to the public. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's it.
Anybody want to ask Cliff anything? We're great. Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you.
Next, we have our town attorney, Johnny. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
The only update I have will be in closed session.
Okay. Very good. Well, again, we're glad you're with us this evening. We literally have no old business or new business, so we're moving on to public comment. Did anybody sign up to speak, or would anyone like to speak who's here who didn't want to sign up? But if you want to speak to us, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll move on. To council business, I'm going to go last. So Leo, would you lead us off?
Well, I'll bring you up to date on tourism board. We met this past month in June at the COA because there's some major work being done on the marketing area where we normally meet there at our normal place at the visitor center. And we won't be meeting in July, so the next report I'll have will be for when we do August or be September. For April, occupancy collections were, for the month of April, was down 3%, and the current year-to-date is down 1%. Now, when you go back to 2021, that number was the number was 39,424,000, and for April 2023, it's 43,812,000. So, it may on a month-to-month basis sound bad, but it's not, because if you go back to 2020, that number was only 715,316. So you just have to look at the numbers. April for meals was up 0.4%. Current year to date is up 5.6%. Again, it's similar. April of 2022 was 29,762, but when you go to 2021, it was 26. And if you go to 2020, it was 3,749,000. So based on prior pandemic, it's growing well. And we also approved our budget, which was a little over $11 million. That's all I got.
Very good. Thanks, Leo. Paula?
No real update except that the Albemarle Rural Planning Organization which Wes and I both sit on that group, is finally meeting in person in August. I think I've never met any of these people in person, so this would be interesting. But this is a group that sets legislative priorities for the 7 counties in northeastern North Carolina. It's a very powerful, wonderful group, and I'll be happy to meet people in person.
Very good. Thanks, Paul. Mayor Pro Tem Matt Neal.
No update. Everybody enjoy the summer so far.
Very good. So a couple of things. I don't normally do this, but it is going to be a couple of things. Our next meeting is August the 1st. That's the first Tuesday, which is the first day of August, August 1. We want to recognize and express our appreciation for Jam Media Solutions, which is the conglomerate that owns 4 of the radio stations here in the area. And they are currently running, along with their weekend traffic reports, basically the message that we would like them to let everyone to pay attention to, which is for travelers going north to Duck and Corolla, please stay on NC 12 and don't use the neighborhood streets of Southern Shores. I just heard it this past weekend. Paula says she heard it last year, so I'm clearly behind the times. But I just want to publicly recognize this radio station. They're doing it not because we asked them to, but because they've heard and seen the messaging, and they are trying to do their best for our community at large. And I just want, again, thank you. We appreciate you. All those 4 radio stations wherever those traffic reports are being heard. Lastly, town staff is pursuing getting grant writing assistance from the North Carolina League of Municipalities and/or consultant that another town in Dare County has used with success. And the types of grants that we will be pursuing would be funding things like stormwater mitigation projects and additional walking paths. And I guess I mentioned earlier about pursuing some grant funding for upgrading the safety of all of our pedestrian crosswalks on NC 12. So that's something that we're going to be leaning into in the next few months, very much. That's all I have. Now, we need a motion, please, council, to go into closed session.
I move we go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, paragraph A5 and A3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're headed into closed session. Thank you, everyone, for coming. You can stay. Probably won't take too long, but there's not much after a closed session. We just say goodbye.